Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So you know that Manofest documents that's making rounds. I've not been able to watch it, but I like listening to people break it down, especially when it's a man. So today we have Jasper Scopes breaking it down. I like it. Let's hear what his own perspective of it is.
I lived for 2 years with a guy who listens to Andrew Tate, and this is my insight on the Manosphere. So I used to be friends with a guy who constantly sent me Andrew Tate content on Instagram Reels, and we lived together for 2 years. But then we had a fallout because of differences in values and personality. After watching the Manosphere documentary by Louis Theroux, I thought it lacks the real psychology behind why some guys think like this. The first thing is that their obsession with money is not because of greed. It's about worthlessness. The guy that I lived with generally thinks that he has nothing else to offer in this world besides his bank account. He thought that,
oh my god, somebody finally said it, and I won't lie, guys, if we're being honest, this is bulk of the issue with a lot of men. That is why you see them, they want to have money. Some even go as far as getting money illegally, just so that they could have that sense of worth, that oh, they're worthy to be in the society. This,
if he hit a certain number, then his social anxiety, his loneliness, and his social circle will just fall into place. But I think he completely forgot that financial stability doesn't really fix his lack of social skills. So let me give you an example. One night we went to a party and he got me exclusive access, and I was happy, I was excited because that was the first time that we went out together. So in the bar, I screamed like, let's do shots. And then he just looked at me dead in the eye and he said, Jasper, I'm not an idiot like you, and the only reason why you're here is because of me. And I thought he was drunk, so I just let it slide. But then I brought it up the next day and I told him like, oh, what you said hurt my feelings. And then he just completely denies it, took no accountability, and pretty much did not apologize to me. So the thing is, like, he works a really crazy hour and he's a very hardworking person, but he's losing the ability to be a human being in the process. And then this is another aspect that I think was not even hinted on the documentary, but a lot of guys who think this way is they don't hate women, they are jealous of women. Because in the Manosphere environment, a woman's only value is their beauty. So because of that, I think the person that I lived with was low-key jealous of women because he thought that being born a pretty girl is a cheat code in life and that everything will fall into place. All he needs to do is marry a rich man. While if you're a guy, you have to grind really hard. And here's the catch, because he works so intensely, he doesn't have a social circle and female friends to correct him. No one is telling him about how some girls pukes 12 to 20 times just so that they could stay skinny. Or like how he doesn't even need to care about where he puts his drink at a party because his drink wouldn't get spiked. And so without female friends that could correct him, and with the amount of hours that he spends on Instagram Reels, then he starts falling into an echo chamber where his belief was not scrutinized or challenged. So I came to this conclusion because at some point, we were watching The White Lotus season 1, and Alexandra Daddario's character, Rachel Patton, she was a trophy wife who is struggling with her current status. And then, so the entire season, it was like talking about her struggles and about how she perceived herself being perceived as a trophy wife. But then, the guy that I lived with doesn't seem to understand the struggle of her character, because he looks at me and said something along the line of, I don't know why she's complaining. All she needs to do is marry rich. She already did that. And I thought he was joking, but
this, and the funny part is, it's not just men that think like this. Even there are a lot of women that actually think in the line of this. What is your problem? Why are you complaining? You have a man that provides. What else do you need? There are a lot of people that have that mindset. This is how they reason. Oh my god, this guy
really wasn't.
And
I think he's just so tired of hustling that he created a fantasy version of womanhood to resent. And I think the last part is that there's a massive empathy deficit in many men who are within the manosphere or who consumes rectal content a lot. Because remember, HS does not feel any remorse for his activities, right? Or his actions. And that reminds me of how the guy that I lived with. Because if he hasn't experienced it, then it's not real. For example, I remember at some point I was talking about my dreams and aspirations. And so I told him as a child, all I wanted to do is to live in Europe or study in Europe. And now that I live in the Netherlands, I have achieved the dream. And then the thing is, if you're a non-European, you understand how impossible this task feels, right? It requires a certain sacrifice that you need to give. But then he responded to that with, you should dream bigger. And so he is European. He has quite a comfortable life as well. So I didn't know whether that part was ignorance or whether he could not grasp the idea that people have different starting points in life. But what it shows is that he lacks the ability of putting himself in other people's shoes. And so if you lack understanding of other people, then you also lack empathy. So while his behavior was not the nicest or the kindest, I think his behavior is a symptom of a system that pressures men into thinking that they have no value outside of their wallet or income. And the thing is, I think we forget that wealth right now is extremely concentrated to the very wealthy. And majority of us are losing in the system. So this ideology will keep on growing as long as poverty is widespread. Also, I think it's important to highlight that these Manosphere influencers probably get sponsorships or donations from politicians to spread these ideologies, because this ideology is extremely polarizing and it keeps the people apart. So no longer that it is left versus right, it's also a gender fight. So I think when Louis compares HS with Bonnie Blue, I understand the comparison, because to young women, they are pressured to be beautiful, right? And the negative effect of that pressure is making young women develop eating disorders. Meanwhile, young men have the pressure of being successful and rich. And then from this pressure, if they fail to meet it, then they turn into misogyny, because that's the only way they could get women in a system where they're losers. The problem is, young women would only hurt themselves, while men would oppress the rights of others. We could not mock these people. We need to acknowledge this as a societal problem, because I think a lot of people just want to feel important, right? And so if the society is very small-minded in terms of what they value, for example, if they only value wealth or if they only value beauty, there's going to be a group of people who don't meet these requirements and then starts becoming resentful. So what about you? What do you think? What do you think is the cause of the manosphere? Why is this content so popular? Please tell me on the comment.
I want to believe that one of the reasons why this content is popular is because for the longest time, we've only had the women POVs for the longest time on social media, everywhere, even in entertainment. It has always been about women POVs. It's just in recent years that the men are now started to come up, to talk about it, men stuff. I guess that's why anything that women do, everybody want to hear about it, because we don't just to hear from them initially. And I'm one of those people that love the fact that men are beginning to speak up. This guy just broke it down. It's as if he just echoed most of the thought I've discovered about men. And I don't see that men feeling worthless when they don't have money. I don't see it going away anytime. I don't see it going away anytime. And I won't lie, society puts that pressure on them. That's the way we've been structured. Society has been structured. As a man, if you're not bringing money, if you're not bringing them paper, you are worthless. Even to family members, even to their women, a lot of people. That is why you see some men, they have that pressure to make money. That's why you see them, they're going to get it illegally. And most times it's as if it's the end justifies the means when it comes to making money. No matter how you make it, so long as at the end of the day you're able to get that money. That's why you now see in this side of my country, people are now priding themselves, girls are now priding themselves in dating, a scammer, because he has money to spend on them, so they don't care. Initially, it used to be a thing of, you know, shame to associate yourself with somebody like that. Even them, they used to hide it, but now it's not becoming a thing of pride, because society now pride men that have money, irrespective of what the source of that money is from. People are beginning to not to care. Ah, well, this makes a lot of sense, guys. But let me know what you think about his his breakdown of this. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Bye.